For more, let's bring in Gene Munster of Deepwater Asset Management. Gene, what's your take on all this? You continue to be a big AI believer in the long term, but even in the short term, does this change the economics?
I mean, Melissa, the short term, the economics for these large language models is horrendous. And so I think it changes it from bad to worse in the short term. I just want to put some quick context around those numbers. Is right now, OpenAI pays News Corp about $50 million, that's with an M, a year for their licensing agreement. They're going to do about $4 billion in revenue this year and about $11 billion next year. And so, I mean, it's measurable. That obviously hits their bottom line. But as I mentioned, they're losing a lot of money. Google's search business is a $200 billion a year business. And if you take the view, which I have, that ultimately that these large language models can be multiple, you can have multiple companies that are the size of Google's search business. Then if you're paying $300, $400, $1 billion, $2 billion a year in some of these licensing deals, which ultimately they're going to happen, it's a hit, but it really doesn't make a huge difference down the road.
For a company like a Google, we were just sort of talking about how they were now selling ads. They're putting ads and sponsored content next to AI search results. That changes this whole thing, too, because the less robust the search results, the answers to the queries, the less you can sell advertising for, I would assume.
True, but I think there's just going to be this blurred line for consumers about what is a search and what is a prompt. Ultimately, is that if consumers go to Google and if the search diminishes, but the generative result, kind of that AI result improves, I think people, if ultimately they get what they want, then that Google wins. That's why they've taken this approach of integrating these two. They want to maintain their eyeballs, the almost 3 billion people a year that use a day that use a Google product. And so, Melissa, I think that it's that trade-off between search needs to be taken in the context of what's happening with the generative results. And then they're doing, I think, a really good job. They just started in May with this adding generative search to it. And this is going to be the first full quarter, this September quarter of those results. And so that partial answer to your question, we're going to hear a lot about that because of that dynamic when they report next week.
Hey, Gene, it's Tim, though, but help us understand how you think about this valuation, because people are reading the papers today and they're hearing about $8 billion on maybe 50 million annualized sales, which is going forward. They were at 10 million sales to start the year. You're someone that sees the big picture. In fact, that's part of what you talk to us about often with some other companies. Does this number make sense? Should it make sense? Does it matter? Because it really, again, there's a 520 million valuation at the start of the year.
For Perplexity, this one's a little bit tougher for me because they're raising $500 million, and the valuation to me, it's what's the cost to play in this. Larry Ellison has said it's $100 billion to be kind of a proprietary large language model. That's what you need to raise. And so you look at Grok, and there's $6 billion, OpenAI's recent $6-7 billion raise. You need to be raising in chunks of billions, not millions. And understand that it's a big raise for a private company that's moving quickly, but ultimately they're not going to go at it alone. Perplexity is going to get acquired. They're just up against too many other big guns here to try to get to those coveted 4 or 5 spots of the LLM landscape.
It was really interesting when you said it just makes the economics go from horrible to even worse or something to that effect, Gene. So does this layer of complication in terms of having to pay for content, does that just make the smaller players go way faster and really firmly puts the AI game into the hands of big technology, which is what, lawmakers, for what they're worth, are really concerned about?
Well, lawmakers are going to have their hands full for 2 reasons. Number one is that these big companies are just going to continue to take share and take a piece of this AI pause. And as I mentioned, is that it's horrible in the near term for the economics, but long term, these are going to be some impressive economics. And ultimately, what is the value of making information, knowledge available at a low marginal cost instantaneously? I think there's a lot to that. And so these big tech companies, they're going to just keep getting bigger and bigger. I didn't believe that a few years ago. I thought that there was going to be kind of a rotating out. And now since AI has come on, it's pretty clear. So I want to be clear, AI is going to be a big thing for those companies.